There's a cynical joke about the life cycle of a corporate project. It goes through 6 distinct stages: enthusiasm, disillusionment, panic. Then comes the search for the guilty, the punishment of the innocent, and finally, the praise of the non-participants. Captain Chesley Sully Sullenhofer famously bypassed this cycle. In 2009, moments after takeoff, his aircraft lost both engines. He had seconds to decide whether to risk returning to the airport or put a commercial jet down into the Hudson River. In his later accounts, Sully noted a fleeting thought that an internal investigation might scrutinize a water landing. He immediately discarded the worry. He focused on the mechanical variables and the immediate problem of keeping his passengers alive, refusing to let fear of future blame paralyze his decision-making. Most office environments lack that clarity. Workers often rely on a darker set of tactics: slandering, deflecting, and hoarding recognition. We operate under the assumption that playing a ruthless game of blame or be blamed is the required strategy to keep our jobs. But data on career longevity and team performance tells a different story. The very instinct we rely on to protect ourselves turns out to be the exact mechanism that destroys us. This dynamic was visible when a retail management team was tasked with expanding their store footprint into a new region. They had a strict deadline to secure leases before an investor meeting. Several weeks passed with absolutely zero progress. Fearing they would be held personally responsible if a specific location failed, the team spent their meetings arguing in circles, completely paralyzed by the risk of future blame. Finally, Beth, the most experienced member of the group, broke the stalemate. She carefully surveyed the areas, calculated the rates, and began negotiating leases on her own to save the project timeline. Her colleagues felt their own inaction was exposed by her initiative. They complained to senior management that Beth was rushing the process, turning her into a scapegoat for their own delays. The environment became so hostile that Beth quit. This timeline shows the company's expansion. Months after the deadline, they settled on their new store locations, the exact ones Beth negotiated before she quit. Their focus on finding a scapegoat cost them their most efficient worker and delayed growth for an entire quarter. We treat blaming others as a tool for self-interest, but clinical data suggests it is a self-defeating strategy. The Center for Creative Leadership found that corporate managers derail their own careers primarily through an inability to manage relationships, specifically by refusing to take accountability for team failures. George Vaillant, a psychiatrist at Harvard Medical School, classified the chronic shifting of fault as a psychological defense mechanism, common in immature individuals who cannot process routine adversity. This visualization highlights a physiological study by researchers Howard Tenon and Glenn Affleck. They found that in 77% of cases studied, the act of blaming someone else directly caused measurable physical and mental distress to the blamer themselves. Deflecting fault truly operates like a toxic poison you drink yourself while hoping the person sitting across from you dies. If dodging responsibility rots you from the inside out, then fighting for the credit you rightfully earned might seem like the healthy alternative. But that path has its own hidden dangers. Take the story of Robert Kearns, the engineering professor who invented the intermittent windshield wiper. When automotive giants began using his design without permission, Kearns launched a 30-year crusade against Ford and Chrysler. He utilized his own children as his legal team, driven by a need for the world to recognize the idea as his. He rejected massive settlement offers for decades because he wanted his day in court. Eventually, he won and was awarded over $20 million in settlements. But the victory came at a catastrophic price. 3 decades consumed by litigation cost Kearns his marriage, ended his academic career, and led to a mental breakdown. The obsession with being recognized destroyed his life. He won the settlements, but lost everything the money was meant to protect. The system is rigged against the standard response. Shifting blame stalls your career, while obsessing over your personal glory burns your life to the ground. Surviving a toxic office environment requires ignoring the default rules of self-preservation. To gain true influence, start by giving away the credit, distributed far more freely than feels comfortable, and certainly more than feels strictly fair. Next, strategically absorb small amounts of fault. take the hit for minor errors to act as a psychological shield for the people working with you. By absorbing the blows and passing the accolades down the chain, you step out of the cycle of fear. You disarm the office politicians and build the deep, resilient loyalty required to execute difficult projects. Effective leadership requires dismantling the game itself. By absorbing the blame and passing the praise, you establish the psychological safety a team needs to focus on the work rather than the fallout.